Okay, so here we are for the first part. We've gotten our project set up, and we are going to get into some of our JPA mappings tests. This might be the first time in the boot camp that you've seen these types of tests. For all of our JPA tables, our entities that wire together, this style of testing will be very similar for all of the different applications that you do. So hopefully it's a good template for you when you start to test your own entities that you create. And let's go ahead and take a look at the project again. Notice we have three tables. We want to start testing out how these tables are created and the relationships that happen between each of them. I want to start with the simplest of tables, and that's our topic table. So we'll begin by test driving its creation, and we'll go from there and look at these relationships. Notice this textbook table has a relationship that is tied to a course, and we've got a course that is tied to a particular topic. So I think the easiest way to do this would be to create the table, the topics table, and then look at the course and how the course ties into a particular topic, and we'll go from there. So we'll build them out in that fashion, and let's get started. Go ahead and get into this project. So it's just the one for focus for us here, and we are going to create in our test folder JPA mappings test. We're going to put a few annotations on here. These will be basic annotations that we'll put on our JPA mappings test class every time that we work with. So we want to do the run with annotation. Data JPA test. So we'll bring those in. Well, let's go ahead and create the topic here. So we'll run a test to save and load topic. We'll have to create a topic, and the general behaviors here that we have when we create a object and we want to save this object, we will use the repo, a repository that is tied in exactly with the entity that we're creating. So if we have a topics entity here, we are going to have a topics repository, which will allow us to create, read, update, and delete to build out our entity. We can take a look at our table here, and it just has a string, which would be the type of topic that we're covering here. So it takes that as a string. All right, well, we'll have to drive the creation of these classes. So let's start with our topics class here, and we'll make sure that goes in main. Constructor on there. And you know the drill on these now, so we are going to go a little bit quicker with the creation of these versus test driving this out. So what do we want to put here on our constructor? let's go ahead and use that as just the name of our topic. You know how to match this up. Now, something else that we need to consider here is that each one of our items needs to be identified with a particular ID. So this would have an ID in our table, this would have an ID, and this would have an ID. So JPA will automatically give these IDs if we ask it to by using a couple of annotations. We'll put that on there. And so these annotations here will allow us to be, the add ID will identify that that's our primary key, which it should always be for our entities. And then generated value, JPA will create a number for this. So we don't have to worry about bringing this into the constructor. Our populator, whatever we need to put an ID on this, it'll just be created for us, which is really nice. So we have that functionality. Okay, back to our tests there. And the last thing we need to do is create a topic repository. So in order to do this, we're going to inject our test with this topic repository. And this will come in with a resource annotation here. And this is going to be an interface that we create. Make this in main. And we can extend an interface on this. And there's our interface that's created. So the CRUD interface, CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete. So it brings in some of the functionality that we build out for ourselves early on. Save, find one, find all these types of things. It brings that functionality in for us so we can have it do the work. And it comes with a type here. The type will be topic. And the ID is always going to be a long. So this will give us that functionality to do things like save. And you can see now we are able to save this particular topic that we've created. So we're going to take an ID on this, and initially, ultimately what we'd like this test to do is grab an ID and be able to find that particular topic that we are expecting by ID. So that is the mission here. So let's create an ID. So we're going to add these two lines of code in very often to our JPA tests. What this does is it'll force JPA to hit the database when we try to find it. And we'll have to inject this with an entity manager here. And that's always good to put at the top here. We're going to inject this as a resource for us. And again, this is just going to be common practice for our JPA tests. This will be something that you see in many of the tests that we write before we actually hit on the data. So it's usually happening right after we create that entity. All right, so let's see if I can make the test build this out. We want to find a result. We want to create a result that will hit our topic repo. And here's all the methods that we have available to us by extending that CRUD repository. Right out of the box, we have create, read, update, delete. We also have find all, which is going to be very common for us. And again, this is something we've worked with before in our Spring framework. And find one has been replaced in Spring 2.0 with find by ID. And we want to get the particular ID here of what it is that we've set up for this particular topic that we saved. And we've set it up to have topic ID. Let's see if the ID gives us some feedback here. It doesn't. Basically, this find by ID is now considered an optional, which is Java 8. It's telling us, is it there or isn't it there? And in order to create that, we need to build out a result of type optional with a parameterized type of topic. So for us to obtain the value from result, because it's an optional, we now have some methods, and is present is one we'll reference, is it there or isn't it there. In this case, we want to pull the results, so we're going to use get. And we'll run an assert that if we pull the topic by get name, that we actually get the topic that we are expecting here. And we are expecting it to be topic. So we'll need to create this accessor. Let's make sure this test fails before it passes. So let's change this to be something that isn't a match. Should be expecting topic, but we're going to get 2. And that didn't load, so that kind of worries me that there's another error in here. That wasn't the error that I was expecting to get. So we don't have our entity mapped correctly. And we need to come in here and put the entity annotation on our topics table. And what that'll do is tell JPA that that is our entity table. Oh, Oh, and we need a default constructor. No default constructor here. This is required by JPA. Because as it hits on the table, it needs to hit on this empty constructor first, then it'll build our what we call our columns of our table later on. And we get a passing test. So let's clean this thing up a little bit here. I like to move my accessors up. Out, and so we've got our data there so far. We're looking pretty good, and our first test passes. So we've successfully saved and loaded a topic. We've got that entity set up. We can test generation by ID as well here. Pretty much do this one the same way. I don't need to have the comment in there anymore. Let's check that we actually have an ID in there. We don't know what that ID is. We can assume that it's 1, but you never want to make assumptions. So we know it's something greater than 0. But JPA does a pretty good job of putting those IDs on, starting at 1 and going from 1 to 2 to 3, but we don't want to make that assumption, so let's just play it safe and assume that it is greater than 0. Actually, we can make this fail by saying let's make it greater than 2. Make this greater than 0. We got a passing test. All right, so we've successfully created the topic entity, and now we want to do this very similar routine for the course here. So a course has a name, a description, and a particular topic. You can go ahead and try to work off of what I've done here for should save and load topic. See if you can build out should save and load course. How close can you get? There is one little twist, and that is that we are bringing in a topic object here in our third column. So that is something to think about and consider as you build this out. What's interesting here is I can actually get away with not putting a topic in here for my course right now. And I'll explain why once we get to that part. Go ahead and create that class. Create that constructor. are also going to put the ID on this. Make sure that's the Java persistence generated value and Java persistence ID. Remember the default no args constructor the JPA requires. So we'll put one of those in there as well. And we'll inject a course repository here. Course, and ID will be long. It gives us the ability to create, read, update, and delete our course entity. So we'll hit on some similar behaviors here through the rest of this test. Pretty much just like we did with our topic. You have to be careful with copy and paste. This is now a course. I think I forgot my ID here. Create this getter. So there's a couple of different ways. Notice I shortcut that process here and I broke it out on 2 lines here. So however you are better at seeing that and learning from that, you can do it either way. That's perfectly fine. But I wanted to show you both ways there. And this needs to be course. We want to assert that this is course name. Now this should fail, and see if you can remember why once I put the getter in there. That is going to fail for us, and see if you can remember the annotation that we need that I almost missed in our topics entity. So we're going to come into course here, and we need to make sure we put our entity on there. Again, Java persistence entity, be careful of the hibernate entity. And we get a passing test. So I can now come over here, we'll move our getters up. Just keep organized here. I don't have anything for description, so it might be useful to put that in, just in case I need it later, which I will with my time leaf. And that's one of those things where I know I'm going to need it later. I could let the creation of the time leaf drive that build, but I want to keep everything with so much going on. I want to keep that same routine up here for everything that we're doing. So you can see that was pretty good there. Now notice I've got that test to pass without doing anything with my topic here, which is interesting. I didn't include any of this build out yet. We're going to do that in a special test, our next test that we created. So this is an exciting and new test for you here. That one should have been review. This is a big test because it will also create some relationships for us. Let's establish that relationship of course to topic. So let's go back and look at the theory here a little bit. So one course can have multiple topics tied to it. So you can see we have both Java and TDD topic objects, which could be argued to be created right here associated with this. So we have a one-to-many relationship. One course can have many different topics. So that'll be something for us to think about here. Now, who is the owner of this? Topic is not the owner. So we must create these firsts. All right, we need to have topics first. If you don't have the topic created first, you can't put it into the course table. Course owns this topic. It's inside of the table. So these topics have to be created first. So let's create some topics here, whatever we want. Now we can create a course that will include those topics. Now, I think we've seen this sort of behavior before in our constructor, so we're going to have to go in and create that operator there to bring these in as a collection. So we can have it or we may not have it, and that's going to be up to us when we specify. So in order to do that, we can bring in a topic such as that. So we bring in a collection. We don't know how many. Let's bring in as a hash set. So this will leave it up to us to bring those in. I think I need list here. All right, so we have to create this collection here. So I'm going to come up here and create that collection. So this is something that we really need to think about. All right, one course can have many different topics, but many different courses can have many different topics. So notice that this topic wasn't one and done for that course. It's in both of those courses. And this course has multiple topics. So we actually have a many-to-many relationship here. It's not like a topic can only be tied into one course and one course only. We can really flexibly move these topics around. So we have a relationship called a many-to-many relationship with topics. So we need to do an annotation for that. And now we are specifying, we don't know how many, we are going to tie that in when we create our database, and we're able to do that here with this spread operator that we see, and we're going to bring those in as a hash set. Now, why a hash set? Let's see if we can define this here a little bit for you. Doesn't give us a very good example, but the key is here, we don't want to have any duplicates in this. It would make sense to duplicate your topics, so we will create it as a hash set. All right, so far that's looking pretty good for us here in our test. And from this point on, things will be pretty similar to some other tests that we've run. Let's bring this information in here. I need a new ID for my course. Let me create that after I've saved the course. All right. We'll use contains in any order here. All right, this is a really common problem that can come up here, that it expected this iterable over these two items here, but we got something that wasn't matched. So what we, in essence, need to do here is double check our relationships that we've set up here. I think I need to come into topic and handle this data as well. So I've handled this data on the course side here by setting it up in the constructor and creating this many-to-many relationship, but I believe I've got to go into topic and also create that many-to-many relationship. So we don't have a collection of topics on this side. We should have a collection of courses that we would be tied to. And so we'll have to use the many-to-many annotation on this as well. Now this is something that you need to dive into and read. Every many-to-many has two sides, the owning and non-owning side. The non-owning side must use the mapped by annotation. And so this test will still not pass because I haven't mapped it to point in one direction. So I'm pretty much getting that same error. You will see this error in your JPA tests a lot, and you have to think back to these annotations and these relationships that you're creating. And so this is the non-owning side, my topic, and so I need to be able to do a mapped by here. To that topics collection, and let's see here, this should pass for us. All right, still getting the same issues. One more thing that we need to handle for each of these, and we'll start in the topic. You have to do this in both. I'm going to put these underneath the constructor. So I'm going to come up here to source, and I want to generate hash code and equals for the ID. the particular ID, which is our unique identifier. It's going to create this crazy looking hash code and equals, but we want to make sure that we are getting the particular objects. This is what JPA needs to understand the exact object that you're looking for by ID. We need to do this for every entity that we make. Move my getter up here in my course table. And below my constructors, let's do the same thing. Go to source, generate hash code and equals for ID. You will always only do this for your ID. It's your particular unique identifier. And this should allow my test to pass. And it does. So there's a few different things you have to do if you're getting that expected initerable over and you're seeing that your objects don't exactly match, and you dive into the hash code there and the locations of those objects don't match. We'll check our relationships, the different annotations to have many to many, one to many you'll learn about, many to one, all these different relationships. We have to annotate these entities correctly. We have to save these objects in these tables in the proper order. So we need to get the topics first, then include the topics in our course table. And then we also need to make sure that we're generating that hash code in the equals. And those will usually clear up any errors that you're going to have with those tests. All right, so let's go back into topic. I could generate a getter for this collection of courses that we have here. So I can go to source, generate getters for courses. It should put that in for me. All right, let's just check everything here. We should have this table just about done. Automatically generating IDs. We have a many set up with our courses, so many topics can be in many courses. We've got accessors for ID, name, and our collection of courses. Default no args constructor required by JPA. The specific constructor that we want to find to associate a topic with a name. And we've got our hash code and our equals overrides here. So this table looks to be about done. Course table looks to be about done in similar fashion. The entity annotation, the ID and generated value annotations, the many to many. It's the owning side of that relationship, so it doesn't need to use mapped by. We've got our accessors. We've got our default JPA no args constructor. We are specifying, we don't know how many topics we're going to bring in. We're going to bring in some collection of topics, either none, that's why I could get away with 0, or as many as we would like to put in there. So notice that this test is still passing, even though I haven't added a topic in here. It could be 0, or it can be as many as we would like. So we've driven all of this with 4 different tests so far. Should save and load topic, should generate topic ID, save and load a course, and we've established that course to topics relationship. Really important relationship there. Let's do something interesting here. We want to talk about querying our data a little bit. What if we wanted to find a course by a particular topic? So if we go back to our table here, and let's say, let's search our topics out. We have this topic's Java. We should see all the courses that are related to that topic. So here we get a chance to do a query. We talked a little bit about that in our customers example. So let's build a query out here. For topic, one particular topic. Wording on that could be important. Let's create a topic first. Doesn't matter. create a course. Like the name of this. Let's call that Java instead. Let's do another course. Oh boy, I also don't like the name of this. I don't want to do course 1, course 2. Let's call this this one Advanced Java, if I can spell right, V-A-N-C, Advanced Java. And it also contains the topic of Java. Okay. So we want to expect a collection to come back here of different courses that we have. And we want to do a find by topic contains topic. So why topics? Well, this is our collection. This is plural for our collection. So this right here is going to be tied into the language that we have here. And so that's why that is so important. What's our topic called? Java, right? So find by topics contains Java, and we need to build this out in the course repository. Looks like it did it for us there. Beautiful. There it is. So remember the JPA queries, it will parse this, find by topics contains, it's going to do the work for us here. There you go. Now you can see we are able to pull in the proper courses that are tied into that topic. We found both of them. We could even prove this by creating a course that doesn't have, let's say it doesn't have Java attached to it, right? So it's just this. Oh. Let's say it's Advanced Java 2, and for some, whatever reason, it does not contain that topic of Java. And if we are to assert that our courses for topic contains these 3 courses, this would fail for us because no, we did not tie the Java topic into that. So that will not pass for us. So as you can see there, we expected to find the 2 courses that we were looking for, not this 3rd. So let me get rid of it. And it's okay that it's specified in our collection here, but we don't want to reference it in our collection of courses for topic because it does not have that topic specified. So there we go, we get a passing test. So we've just tested successfully our query. You do something similar here. Maybe you want to be able to find by ID. Want to go ahead and try to get this one to pass, you can pause the video and see if you can work on it. Now, since we're working with ID, we do have to dive in to the particular ID of that topic. So we need to hit on that accessor there. Let's bring our 2 courses over here. Call this Advanced Ruby. Find by ID. Should be the same assert. See what happens here. That's behaving for us there. I think I need to do that. Okay, so find by ID. Yeah, that would give me an optional. I'm creating my own particular query. That's what concerned me here. Yep, that makes sense. Find by ID was going to look for an optional. I believe we did that right here. But I don't want to find by ID. I'm not running the CRUD repository query. I'm creating my own that has topics ID in there. So that will allow that to come out better for me. It's pretty much the same test as what we had just run. Okay, and I think we're going to do one more test. We need to drive the creation of the textbook. You can do other queries here as well. Now you've seen how to test queries. Once we've created this textbook, you can find by maybe course containing a particular textbook and see what shows up. So there are some other relationships that you can create. We have one more test in this video and then we are done, and we are going to drive the creation of the textbook entity here. And again, now that you've gotten some practice with this test right here, should establish course to topics relationship. This would be very, very similar to what we're going to do to establish textbook to course relationship. Let's do establish here just to keep everything very uniform between our namings of our tests. All right, so go ahead and give it a shot if you would like. Now, what I want to bring to your attention is that we need to save the course first because the textbook owns the course. So we have a title and we have a course. So we need to create this course first. And I can get away with, again, because of the spread operator for my topics, I can get away with not specifying a topic there. Textbook, call it here. It's like a title as a string, and then we want to bring in course as an object, the course object there. Create our textbook, create our constructor, as a title and a course. Now, you know we're going to have to go back and talk about relationships on this one, so we will come back to that later. You also know at this point we need to put entity on all of our tables. Same routine for all of these. We need a default constructor. Which every application has until you create one that's more specific, then you've got to actually specify that constructor. So there's our textbook for now. We will inject the textbook repo. This means we need to create that. Oh. All right. And why not create 2 books? Just title 2, we'll tie it into that same course. So that should give us a little hint on the relationship that we have here. And if we take a look back at our table, a book could be used in many different courses. Notice Java 102, many different courses are referencing these books here. So I think what we would say here is that many courses can use one book. Many courses could use one of the books. So that's going to be something to think about here with our relationships. Will be mapped by course. Move our accessor up. And I think I need to go into textbook here, and we need to create this relationship over here as well. So for a textbook, it should be many to one. So it'll be the other side of that relationship. All right, we'll see if the test is going to pass. We might have to put our hash code and equals in there as well, which is good practice to do in all of your entities. And yeah, we got that iterable over assertion, so we're going to have to go in and do that. So here we are in our textbook. Let's come down underneath our constructor, go to our source. Let's generate our hash code and equals for ID. We'll put that in there. We'll once over here and see if there's anything else that we need. This is a pretty simple class or entity that we're creating. Should do it for us. And we have all of our tests passing. So at this point, we've got a lot of things done. You can see that we've driven the creation of 3 different entities. Each one of those entities is tied in with a repository. And we've done all of that with just 5 or 6 tests here. So here I'll scroll through the tests so you can pause the video and take a look at the tests. Naturally, the imports will come in as you need them. We have to inject our tests with 4 different resources, each of the repositories as well as the entity manager. Here's our topic tests. Should save and load topic, should generate topic ID. Save and load a course, and one of our more complicated tests, establishing course-to-topics relationships. Find courses for topic. So we're running some queries here, or find courses for topic ID, some good query tests, and then establish that textbook to course relationship.